It's the Score North Twin Show.
All right, Score North Extra Innings, Declan Goff and Judd Zolgad live from Target Field, the sports dad. We watched both games this weekend here at Target Field. Twins swept by the Milwaukee Brewers. A 12-inning affair, 4-hour game. Forgot what that feels like. I don't like it, I can tell you that much. Not a fan of it. And then today, Twins rally. They go back and forth. Judd, we watched both these games, and I said to you, I think, on multiple occasions yesterday and today, the Twins had numerous chances to win this game, and yet they just could not pull the trigger, especially with runners in scoring position. And we were able to catch up with Rocco and Joe Ryan in post-game. And although Rocco is usually his more optimistic, glass half full self, he also seemed a little ticked off about the execution of runners in scoring position. You put runners with nobody out on the 7th and 8th, I believe that was. You had a chance to still win this game in the 9th. And unfortunately, the Twins get swept, and now they have the Philadelphia Phillies come to town. Maybe the best team in baseball for 3 games starting tomorrow at Target Field.
Yeah, I think he was disappointed because he's acutely aware of the fact that the Twins have beaten up on bad teams, which they should. Congratulations. He's also acutely aware of the fact that they are not beating good teams, and he knows exactly why, right? It's cashing in. And now this is difficult because we could talk about, and to Rocco's credit, he did not, but, they're without Correa at shortstop, which we both said there were a few plays.
Yeah.
I mean, God bless him. Willie Castro tries, and he's not a disaster, but there were a few plays where you're like, Correa makes, at least the 2024 Correa makes that play. Miranda being out cost them a bat. Royce being out is a double-edged sword because you're almost used to it, unfortunately, by now. But still, if he's playing, that makes a difference as well. So credit to the Brewers. I love how they play, but I think Baldelli is at a point, too, where, with or without Carlos and Miranda and go down and Royce, he's at a point where, the Twins need to win games, and they need to win games with the guys that they have. And just the last 2 days, like the Brewers have sort of executed, and they have not played like pretty baseball, but Dex, I think they've executed when they absolutely need to, and the Twins didn't. And I mean, the telling 2-game stat is this: runners in scoring position. Minnesota 3 for 26.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be great, but it can't be 3 for 26. You can't be getting the first 2 guys on and then 3 outs. Bases loaded, nobody out, as you were talking about, 3 outs. So I think Rocco was disappointed. He's also aware that if this is going to be a playoff team, if they're going to catch Cleveland, Patrick Donnelly, pounding on the glass here, you need to capitalize. And
Yep.
the Brewers did, and the Twins did.
Guards also lost back-to-back games, just like the Twins did this weekend. So, I mean, that's an opportunity right there. You win both those games. Now, all of a sudden, you're 3 games back, I believe, coming into the Phillies, controlling your destiny to a little bit. And, I believe it was Phil Miller, the Star Tribune, asked him, these winning teams have been the problem. You've kicked ass against all the bottom feeders in baseball.
Right.
I will say, I mean, in both these games, I was in the Cleveland series when they went down there. We watched the Yankees series both times here, and then when they obviously played them in the Bronx. Those weren't competitive games at all. You just got your butts kicked for the majority of those games. Both these games were winnable. So then it's this delicate balancing act of, okay, yes, wins and losses are at the end of the day the black and white statistic. But in these 2 games, it felt like the Twins probably should have won both these games, and they weren't able to do that. And now you don't really necessarily get a let-up here with Philadelphia coming to town. Now, heck, if they take 2 of 3, let's say, and I do think that's a long shot, but take 2 of 3 against a Philadelphia Phillies team, I think things start to change a little bit. But with being without Correa, being without Royce Lewis, even being without Jose Miranda, who's probably the closest of the 3 to returning,
Yep.
the Twins still played competitively enough to win the game. And I think, your word of execution, Milwaukee plays this old school small ball, not afraid to bunt, not afraid to do these little things that sometimes we take for granted in today's long ball game. But execution-wise, Milwaukee delivered on their part. Execution-wise, on the Twins' part, they certainly did not.
Yeah, and to go back to what the Twins are about to face in the last 3 games of this homestand, you're going to go Suarez, Wheeler, and Nola.
Yeah.
I mean, you are there's no such thing at this time probably as a must-win game, but you did feel like today was important because you don't know. And look, the Twins could win a couple. I don't know. Baseball's weird. Baseball
Yep.
is a very funny game, and it's fickle as hell. But I think when you're about to basically go through a rotation that is, among the best in baseball there, today was there, and it was essentially, can you out-execute the Brewers? And unfortunately, the response was no. And I get Rocco's frustration, though, because you know what, Dex? Especially in games against teams that aren't just good, but they're smart, the Twins make some dumb mistakes. The Twins do some dumb things. And I think that, that's not... You don't go to spring training and say, hey, let's work on dumb things. Like you spend hours practicing playing, situational, right? Good at bats. I mean, these guys put in hours and hours of work, not to beat the White Sox. Of course, they're expected to, but to win a game. Like if you had won today and split 2 games against a really, really solid Milwaukee team, I don't think you're pissed off. I think you're like, yeah, you know what? And perhaps we could take 2 or 3 or perhaps 1 or 3 from the Phillies. But I think that's where Baldelli's, I think the best way to put his post game is his patience is being tried.
Yeah.
And then you sort of get the occasional cologne sprinkled on, right? Hey, it's going to be the White Sox and A's for the next 6 games. And it's like, oh, the Twins went 5-1. Hey, that's exciting. Well, it might be, but then you always go back to what happens when you again play good and smart teams. Do you counter? You're not always going to be the better team, but you can always be the smartest team and do the smartest things. And I feel like the Twins don't consistently, unfortunately, do that.
Yeah, yesterday in the extra innings, the whole, kerfuffle, I believe it was Okert on the mound. Also, Funderburk, I think, had a little bit of a hiccup maybe yesterday, too. Both of them looked the exact same, so forgive me if I'm just generalizing, both guys with long hair. But yesterday's blip in extra innings ended up obviously costing them. A few excellent bunts laid down, and, yes, Joe Ryan any pitcher gets pissed off when someone lays down a bunt because it's just a little nubber up the mound. It's weak contact. On your individual statistics, on the exit reports, on all that stuff, it looks like you did your job. But then that means where that gray area of, well, I did this, but was the smart play executed? And for the most part, all those smart plays, which we can't really just quantify in the box score statistic stat, those were all on the Brewers' side. And I wouldn't even classify those plays, because Rocco brought up the term luck. Like, are we losing in bad luck fashion? No. I don't think anyone would argue. Rocco's smart enough to know that, and I think any most logical, half-baked baseball fan can figure out these weren't just bad luck plays. These were kind of dumb plays that you don't really see too much of. And then the margin, and look, I think Willie Castro's a fine shortstop. Again, that's the ceiling that I'm going to say that, as a fine shortstop. There was 2, maybe 3 plays a day that Correa makes and or doesn't prevent a run on. And unfortunately, Willie, God bless him, he's doing the absolute best he can to try to fill in for him. Those little things, when you look at a game and 1-run losses, which now I believe the Twins, I think they've lost. At one point this year, they were very good in one-run games. I think they've lost 6 of their last 7 of their last 8 one-run games. Last year, they were not great in that department either. They still ended up winning the division and being a good playoff team. But, you look at a team like Cleveland who's situational, and everyone's waiting for the wheels to come off. And, yes, they've lost 2 in a row, but guess what? They hit in runners in scoring position, so they execute there. And they have maybe the best bullpen in baseball, so they execute in the later innings. So you can get away with that sometimes. Is it sustainable to be a World Series champion? You have to wait till October to play out. But right now, I think those are the little things that are separating the Twins, because how they lost to the Yankees, how they lost to the Guardians, I don't put that in the same bin as how they lost these 2 games to Milwaukee today.
No. And yeah, and there was a time when the Twins were playing terrible. Like there was a time when being smart was not their biggest problem. It was they were playing awful. They got off to that terrible start. So that was different. To go back to what you said, is these were 2 winnable games, and you should have won 1, and you didn't. And it's frustrating. Now, it's interesting, too, because I'm with you. This has nothing to do with luck, like the luck. I mean, the Brewers had some potential extra base hits go foul by this much, right? So that's luck, bad luck. But, again, I will go back to what you just said about Castro. Carlos Correa, and this is why I say this, anyone who watches this team comes to a game, perhaps you have Bally Sports North. If you do, invite me to your house to watch. Don't take for granted what that dude does. And this is why I am on board with him not playing. The timing sucks. I get that. This is a terrible time. You'd far prefer, I mean, the Twins played all of those bottom-feeding teams, right? If Correa sat out those games, it'd be like, that's unfortunate, but, Twins can still win, right, Dex? But The thing here is they have to get him as healthy as possible. They have to. They will go nowhere. They might make the wild card. They might not. But like if Carlos Correa comes back and he's still hobbled, and we see, especially at the plate, the 2023, the large portion, right? I think the Twins are dead. I mean, Correa's importance has been proven, I think, this year by seeing him healthy. And the amount of plays, like Castro fails to make plays that Correa makes, and we don't talk about him. We're just like, of course he made that play. He's Correa. It's not that hard. He makes the game look easy at short, which is incredibly hard. So it has nothing to do with luck. It does have to do with Correa being out. But this was a series in which you could have had guys, and I'll go back to this. You scored a bunch of runs, but you're 3 for 26 with guys in scoring position. This was a series where you had a chance to win 2, if not for sure 1 game, and you didn't. And now the Phillies are coming to town, and you're down Correa still. It definitely hurts. It definitely hurts. But this gets back to the point of don't take what he does for granted, because it's incredible, especially in the field.
One last thing, at least on the execution part of this game, I mean, and these are probably the statistics that Joe Ryan, I'm guessing, is most frustrated about outside of the bunts and stuff we talked about. But the bottom of the order today for the Brewers, they accounted for 5 of the 8 runs. They accounted for 6 of the 8 runs driven in. For God's sake, Eric Haas had a 3 for 4 day. I know Jackson Cheerio's a hot shot prospect that's gotten moved down the bottom of the order, and ever since they played them in Milwaukee, too, loves Twins pitching. You know, executing against 8 and 9 guys in the order. And I know sometimes, you could have a very good 9-hitter or 8 guy in the order, but at the end of the day, Joe Ryan probably looks at that and is obviously very frustrated. And, Ryan maybe wasn't as sharp as we've seen him as his peak today, but Joe Ryan certainly pitched well enough to put his team in a position to win. Same with Pablo Lopez yesterday. So when you get these 2 good pitching performances, and now, you're still looking at who the heck's going to start. It might be David Festa, could be, Louis Varland. I don't know who the hell they're going to call up on Wednesday. But at the end of the day, when your top 2 pitchers, at least on paper, can't deliver wins, it then becomes this trickle down of frustration because they obviously mostly did their part. And nor am I suggesting that Pablo or Joe are pointing the fingers at the offense saying, do your job, because we saw fielding plays today. We saw so many different things over the weekend that caused the Twins not to win either of these games. But execution against those type of things, I am sure individually, like especially today, Joe Ryan is definitely frustrated by.
If this team has serious playoff aspirations, and I'll go back to what I said before, they might make it regardless. The wild card's going to be weird. If they go into a deep slump, they're probably dead. If they don't, they might. But if this team has serious playoff aspirations, by the trade deadline a week from Tuesday, they've got to go get a starter now. Paddock's going to be out. We have no idea. Like, this is very murky. But, he's thrown a bunch of innings at this point. He's been hurt a lot. Like, if you count on him, you're crazy, right? Mm-hmm. So I think there's no question that they have to go get a starter. They also have to make some more roster moves. The one thing, and I know a lot of people like to dump on Baldelli, and he does some things wrong. He does some things fine. But, let's call a spade, Dex. This game is tied at 7 in the 9th if Thielbar probably does not pitch, because he gave up a 8-5. So, it's a 3-run lead now, and you're like, okay, the Twins, I know why they threw him. I don't know what he's doing here. But it's certainly nothing. And what I don't like, and it's going to sound weird, but I don't like Rocco or Pete Mackey having the temptation. Well, we got to use somebody. Who are we going to use? He's not the answer. And we could go down like Okert doesn't do a lot for me, and you're right. He screwed up that play with a bunt beyond belief. It should have gone foul. If nothing else, he should have let Brooks Lee, who's been magnificent at third base, handle it. But Thielbar to me is a minus player. And the temptation of, okay, 7-5, let's not, continue to dip into the bullpen, and you give up what appears to be a add-on run, which is, at the end of the day, the winning run. Mm-hmm. That's a problem. Because, again, winning teams, smart teams from the dugout out, you don't make that mistake in a game that, as far as I'm concerned, was a pretty important game, because you might lose 3 consecutive games now. 3 more.
And we'll probably talk, I know, tomorrow's State of the Twins episode with yourself, myself, Mackie. I'm sure Brooks Lee will be on the topic of mind. I know you asked him a question about it, so we'll probably get into some bigger overarching stuff like we always do on State of the Twins and with Trevor Plouffe Tuesdays.
I'm trying to change things.
You are. You said what was the word you used? Napalm?
No, I'm trying to give ideas out right now.
Ideas. No, but you said you were going to drop you said you were going to
Drop bombs?
drop bombs, but I thought there was some other
I
like
didn't say
C4.
napalm.
You didn't say
I wish I had now.
Yeah, maybe you should have.
Well, I mean, Falvey, not here, right?
Yeah, they're on Cooperstown.
Thad, Cooperstown, no one's here. Declan
Right.
and I essentially ran the team from the
Yes, we
press
did.
box, and we both did a bad job.
Yes, we did.
Lost both games.
And I believe, spoiler alert, Mackie, Judd, and Declan will be at the first time at full strength tomorrow in this press box. So Score North might be just
Fighting
running
Phils.
the team. Yeah, the fighting Phil's coming around. Last thing on this too, Judd, because the Phillies obviously come to town tomorrow, and we just saw what happened with the bullpen. They do get Brock Stewart back. Stewart had a rehab outing on Friday. I'm guessing he's probably scheduled to pitch today. We're recording this at about 4:45 p.m. on a Sunday. But I think the wish list on that trade deadline need is another frontline starter. Probably not an ace. They're not going to be in the market for Skubal. They're not going to be in the market for even like Mason Miller, who I know is a elite reliever, or Crochet.
Scooble's going nowhere. They're
Yeah,
not
I don't
gonna
think so.
trade him.
I
That'd be
think
crazy.
if they really wanted to explore that in the offseason, they probably could. But I think the two big needs right now are maybe one other lefty viable option, which you always can find. And I know some people don't like paying for relievers. We've seen that bite the Twins in the ass with Jorge Lopez. But I don't think you're going to be buying as high as finding a lefty reliever, that's out there, some journeyman lefty that can get some decent outs, and then a frontline starter. Because, as of right now, yes, Pablo Joe, they pitched well. Bailey Ober, I think, for the most part, has pitched pretty well. And Simeon Woods Richardson, who has pitched above expectation, definitely has a leash on him, because I think everyone's kind of waiting for the proverbial shoe to drop with him when teams start figuring him out. So that leaves you with trying to find one other starter. If they started a playoff series right now, I don't feel very confident in the three arms they would have to throw in a best-of-3 game series.
No, and I think you called it, and I know that you and Phil disagree. This is probably 3 weeks ago now, but I think you're right. Right now, I think Joe starts game 1, Pablo starts game 2, and in that world, I need someone else to start game 1 instead of either of them.
Yeah.
I'm with you completely. Yeah. But you know what we have? Here's what's weird. There's only about 5 teams that we know for a fact are going to sell, right? Like, there's a lot of teams who are either going to try and sell and buy simultaneously, or they're going to try and buy, or they're just going to stand pat and say, screw it, let's see. So that's where I'm curious, because this is going to be for sure a seller's market. Mm-hmm. Like the sellers are going to control this. And I guess my question becomes, what's the price for a starter who's not an ace? So you're not talking about, but like a rental. And it goes back to what we've talked about. Do the Rangers sell? Your guy Eovaldi could help a ton.
Yeah.
He's going to be, but he would have to be a rental. So he can't hit the magic innings mark, which I think is 300. He's at 2-something right now. There are, and this is not just a Twins thing. This is a baseball-wide thing, Dex. There are a lot of questions. Hey, before we get done, can we address the Rhys Hoskins home run that the young man caught?
Yeah.
So Austin Martin postgame said, I thought I could have caught it, right?
Yeah.
I got there for the end of that.
Yep.
He was jumping up. But just to be very, very clear here, that ball was in front or over the flower pots out in left.
Yep.
So the young man did not reach onto the field of play, in which case he probably is kicked out of the ballpark, and it's called for a boundary infraction. So Martin thought he had a chance, but he would have literally had to rob that, catching it over those flowers. I don't know that he would have, but if you feel it's controversial, I didn't have the feeling from Baldelli or the Twins that they were really worked up about that, and they would have been if they thought they got screwed.
Yeah, Martin's athletic, dude. He already robbed a home run earlier this year. He made a couple highlight reel catches in St. Paul with the Saints. He's just in general a very athletic outfielder. I didn't look at that, especially after replay, as like a fan robbed that home run. It seemed like they were pretty calm about it, and Austin even said he saw him catch it as Martin was coming down from his vertical jump. So he knew that the fan caught the ball. Because I think a lot of us thought, oh my God, did Martin snag that? Because everyone was kind of waiting on pins and needles. Even Hoskins even like kind of stopped a little bit at second, because he certainly wasn't sure if it was caught or what. No, I certainly don't. And look, at the end of the day, like it's a July game and it's a kid making a play. If that was a grown adult, I would have much more of a problem. I would have a much bigger issue.
Playoff game?
Same situation, like happens?
Yeah. So so the kid makes The kid catches that ball. It's probably not caught, but now it's a playoff loss. How does Declan take that?
I'd probably feel a little more frustrated. But if it's the same play again, I don't think so. I mean that ball was passed enough from the boundary area. The kid made also a great catch. Credit to that kid. The kid made also
That's
a
a
really
nice
good
catch,
grab.
Nice catch.
No, and I think by Austin Martin's tone and also Rocco's tone, they realized pretty quick that okay, like that. I know we like to say a game of inches in football. Game of inches in that situation, probably.
Right.
I think if you were to play that play out 10 times, I do think Austin Martin probably comes down with it less than 5. I think it's at best a 50-50 ball.
Yeah.
So does he come down with it at least once out of 10? Yeah, I think he does. If you replay that 10 times and he tries 10 chances at it, I bet he gets 3 of them, maybe even 4 or 5. But no, I didn't look at that as like the game-changing play by any means. If the Twins were getting beat up by bad luck, that would have been the cherry on top of this weekend. But that certainly wasn't the case.
Yeah, next time, don't pitch Theo Bar in a close game. That would be nice because you would have tied the score, and we'd probably be in extras right now. Anyway.
No boundary area there. There's no gray. There's no gray area boundary there.
Just a bullpen.
Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. This is Score North Extra Innings. We'll be live. I will be live at least from the ballpark over the next 3 days against the Phillies. We'll have State of the Twins tomorrow with Mackey and us two. Trevor Plouffe on Tuesdays. Plenty of great stuff. Big series coming up for the Twins. Good litmus test against those fighting Phils.
What a word.
Litmus test. You like that one?
Yep.
Go Huskies. St. Cloud State. All right. Score North Extra Innings. Be talking at you soon.